Hey everybody, welcome back to the Cast for week 9 or something, I believe. I think we're on month 3 now, but I'm your host, Josh, and we are joined here today with Tara Wright, who's a good friend of ours from Christ the King here in Tulsa. How have you been doing today?
I've been doing good. Thanks for having me, Josh.
Good. Yeah, not a problem at all. I see all your art in the background.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah, got a lot of art going here.
That's awesome. So you have like a studio at your house, like a
It is
room
a
that's set
it is a
aside?
spare bedroom. Yeah, it's a spare bedroom, but
Okay.
it serves as my studio and my office where I
Yeah,
work my normal day job as well.
yeah. That's
Yeah,
awesome. That's cool. Yeah, well, I remember coming up to your guys' house just recently. Whose birthday was? I forget which one. Um,
Jack. Jack just turned 3.
Jack. Oh, was it Jack?
Yes,
Oh,
yeah.
okay, nice. Um, and yeah, I was just walking in. I was like, "Golly, this place is awesome." I actually told Lindsay, I
Thanks.
was like, "This would make a great background for a podcast, and actually, this wall would too." It was pretty funny,
That
but
that green color in
um,
our living room is awesome. It's like we didn't pick it,
yeah,
so I can't take any credit for it, but it's like
no,
such a beautiful color. Yeah.
yeah. But even like the bookshelves and stuff, they're put together. That's why I tried to do with this back here. That's kind of
Hmm.
Adelaide painted that. I actually, this is the only thing I've ever won on the internet where it does one like comment shares. It's a Catholic gentleman mug and I like pictures and stuff, whatever. But yeah, I try to do like this collage of stuff, so at least it's something back there. But cool. Well, I thought we'd start with maybe just a little bit about you and
Okay.
just growing up. Like maybe like you grew up with a cradle Catholic convert. Kind of going through how you met Mark, and then two like what you do today.
Okay, sure. So, born and
You got
raised
30
in.
minutes. But no, just kidding.
Okay, okay, yeah. Yeah, so born and raised in Tulsa. My parents still live out in Jinx, where I grew up. Went to school out there, and then went to Bishop Kelly High School here in Tulsa. I was I'm cradle Catholic, so not a convert. My husband Mark is a convert, so that's kind of a funny story that I could probably tell. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, so grew up here. I went to the University of Oklahoma for college, and I met Mark. Yeah, 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 yeah. Watch yourself. But yeah, I met Mark after college, which praise God, because I don't think if I had met him during college, it would have been a good pair. Um,
Oh yeah.
so we were who we were supposed to be, I think, by the time we met, which is great.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I met him after college through my downstairs neighbor. They were good friends, and he came to visit for a game day, and we ended up hanging out that night, and then he just kept coming back to visit his friend, but really to kind of see me
Yeah, I was gonna say
and
I'm sure. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, to
Yeah.
see about that girl up there.
Yeah.
So yeah, we became fast friends, and it's so funny because he was working as a roughneck out in West Texas at that
Okay.
time. So he'd be like on a hitch for 2 weeks and then back for 2 weeks, and so we'd see each other for like 2 weeks at a time, which was really fun and like honestly a perfect kind of pace for dating because it was like I got to do my own thing and then it was like we had a lot of time together and it was just it was a nice balance.
Yeah.
But anyway, eventually he ended up moving back to Norman, deciding he should go to grad school, giving him a reason to move back, but he did not finish grad school. Um, but it's so funny because when he moved back, I had friends, I was going to church there, and he wasn't Catholic at the time, but kind of like finding his way, I guess, and discerning. He had been through a big discernment process, and um, I heard him say to a friend one time when we were dating, he said, "I don't want to be Catholic, but I think I'm Catholic." um, and I was like, that's great. That's good that he's like come to this point. But
Yeah.
when we were dating, and he had moved back to Norman. He didn't know anyone, didn't have any plans or anything. And I was like, "Hey, do you want to go to this thing on Tuesday with me?" And he said, I can't. I have something on Tuesday." And I was like, "Well, what do you have on Tuesday?" He's like, "I'm busy every Tuesday for a while." I was like, "What in the world?"
Yeah.
So I didn't push it, and we went to mass on Sunday, and of course they announced like RCIA meets on Tuesdays at 6 p.m. or whatever, and I was like, "Are you kidding me?" And he's like, "Well, I didn't, yeah, I didn't know if you'd want to go with me or not." So that's how I found out he was trying to enter the church.
Yeah,
So that's a part of
that's
our
awesome.
story.
So me and him have a kind of a similar story because Lindsay invited me to mass, and I was like, oh gosh. And I told her, I said, I'll go, but I won't become Catholic. And I always say, so I always joke, like anytime I'm asked, like tell my story or something, I always say, so that's exactly what someone will say right before they become Catholic.
Hmm.
And I went. It was actually Father Elkin's either first weekend or one of his first weekends, and so she wanted to go meet him, and she was still looking for what church she would plug into, and she yeah, she introduced me to Father Elkin, who introduced me to Harrison Garlic, who's now Deacon
Oh
Harrison
yeah.
Garlic. But he invited me to hang out on Tuesday nights out at Christ the King, and said it's chill, and if you want to learn more about the faith and stuff. But it didn't never mention an RCA class or anything like that. So I went the first time, not even thinking I would tell Lindsay, whatever. Just went, and I was like, oh shoot, this is like a class. And so I was like, what did I get myself into? But because I had no objections to the faith, I went into it, and as Harrison was explaining, it was actually the order of the mass was the very first class I went to, and I was like,
Mm,
oh wow, that actually all makes a lot of sense because I didn't know what we were doing at mass, and
yeah.
so I actually went back, I think 2 or 3 more times before I even told her, and before in the way I told her, it was kind of like one of those like I was wondering what you were doing when I was working on
Yeah.
Tuesdays, like what you were doing. So
It was
that's pretty
truly
cool.
like such a gift that I didn't know. Like it was like a gift for him to give that to me because it was like not on my shoulders. Like it was just like
Yeah,
God is working and I just get to be alongside of it. So that was, yeah,
yeah,
that was awesome.
yeah, and who knows? Like, I know how I would get right now if someone was like all of a sudden interested in the faith. Like, I might want to be like, "Oh my gosh, this is awesome!"
Hmm.
So let me tell you, and then start shoving
Yeah.
it down their throat, and
And
then
they're
all of a
like,
sudden they'd be like, "Ah, this is a lot.
yeah,
This is too
yeah,
much." Yeah, Lindsay always said, like, I just tried not to. You were kind of heading that direction. I just tried to stay alongside of you and not. I didn't try
yes,
to push you forward, but I didn't let you go
yeah,
backwards, and I didn't want to
yeah.
push you away, if anything. And so, but it is like Father Carey always talked. He used to joke and say, "Oh, good job, Lindsay. Date to convert. There we go."
Nice.
So, you,
Yeah.
so your Bishop Kelly time, were you there with any of the priests that are now the diocese? Like, were you there? Did you go to school with like Father Vince or Father John Fincher?
So I think Father Fincher, I think he's younger than me. I'm not sure. I think he's younger than me. So,
Okay.
which makes me feel old, but I do think he's younger than me. Um, and I do remember like when I was high school aged, I'd go to Robbers Cave. There was a Catholic, like a diocesan camp out there. And I remember when now Father Carey was not Father Carey then. There were a couple of them that
Like
were, I
seminarian.
don't even know if they were seminarians yet. Like
Oh wow.
maybe,
Maybe in the discernment
maybe
phase. Yeah, I
seminarians.
don't really know
Yeah,
his
but
story. Yeah.
he was
I didn't. I
crazy
want to have
back then.
Father Carey on. Yeah,
He
he's
was
still
crazy,
crazy.
but yeah, he's still crazy, but like
Yeah,
in the best way, you know. So I remember
yeah.
a handful of people, and Brian O'Brien was also around then. So yeah,
Okay.
it's fun to
Was
see
he
how
what?
they've
Was he
all.
the?
I think he was just. I'm probably misremembering. Um,
There've been
I want to
so
say he
many of
was
them. Like,
just at Kelly, but not. I don't know. I shouldn't say anything because I'm going to speak out of. But I remember him being around, and he was awesome.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's super cool. Yeah, I was talking to someone who said they've been doing like the seminarian summer like party for all the seminarians or people going into seminarian, and they said they've been doing it for so long that they remember when Father Carey came to it, but was still like discerning the priesthood. And I'm like, that's
Hmm.
crazy because I've never known him but anything except Father Carey. So,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, that's cool. He married me and Lindsay, so we got really close
Oh,
with him.
awesome.
But
Oh,
yeah,
it's
I feel
fun.
like everyone's got a crazy story about him though. Like if you've
Yeah.
interacted with him, you've got some kind of. When I first met him, he like was like, "Oh, Lindsay, Josh, over here," and, like waved us down in a coffee shop. So Lindsay's like, "Hey, like, calm down a little bit." And
Yeah.
he was like, "Oh no, it's good. Like no one's even paying attention. Like he's not paying attention." she's got her earbuds in, so she can't. And can you hear me? Can you hear me? No. Yeah. See, she can't even hear me. And I was like, this guy is nuts. But we met him
Yeah.
for like coffee to talk about marriage prep and stuff like that. And
Mm,
I was like, all right, if this guy's gonna marry us, it's gonna be a wild little marriage. But
that's awesome.
that's cool.
Yeah.
So you and Mark met at OU, and then how long did you guys date before you guys got married?
We, it was not very long. So we were living in Norman, and then he got an internship that turned into a full-time job in New York City while we were dating. So then
Okay.
I moved to New York City, and pretty much right when I got there, he proposed, and we got married within that year. So it was like three
Oh,
years total, I think. Like we were engaged
okay.
within 3 years. Um, Yeah, I remember being on like a subway platform, like catching my train and being like, wow, I barely know this guy. But yeah,
Uh,
it's yeah, providential in so many ways. So
yeah.
very good.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
thought you were gonna say much shorter. 'Cause me and Lindsay, I think we dated for like 8 months, and then engaged for 6 months, and then
Oh
married
wow.
and pregnant 3 months later. So
Oh my
it was wild.
gosh.
So we were like having the first baby, and that's when it was all hitting me of like, wow, like I could like this is
Yeah,
all
it's
really
crazy,
new.
isn't it?
I
Yeah.
guess there's no turning back now. So yeah, no, it was great though. But that's super cool. And that's what actually what I was gonna jump into, because I know that I think that'll be something that relates with a lot of people. Is I know you're super plugged in with your community, like with the Catholic community. I know you guys have a
Mhm.
lot of great moms and women at Christ the King, and plugging in with Bible studies or discipleship, whatever it is. How do you find time to do that when you have Mark, who like travels a lot with work? What's the kind of the key there? How do you make that all work?
Yeah. Well, we've been back in Oklahoma since like 2020, which was such a weird year to move back. And we were kind of undecided about whether we would go back to New York, and we were trying honestly to go back to the East Coast to because our jobs are both based there. So we were planning to move back, and then I found out we were pregnant with number three, baby number three, and it was like, oh, I don't think we can manage living in New York,
Mhm.
and just needed more support. So
Yeah.
we stayed, but in that process, so we bought our house here where we are in Tulsa in 2022. So right before our third child was born. And we went, like a whole year, I feel like, going to Christ the King, kind of peripherally knowing people. But we had lived here kind of long enough to feel like we should have been settled. And Mark and I both were just like, it feels like we don't have really a core group yet. And I think at this pace,
Mhm.
like this isn't going to feel like home unless we really do something about it.
Mhm.
So we
Yeah.
we decided to just start inviting people over for dinner, um, even really
Okay.
before knowing them. So like after
Mhm.
mass, we'd be standing outside at donuts, and we'd see a couple with like, okay, they have kids similar age or similar life stage, and we would just be like, hey, do you want to come over for dinner? Do you want to have dinner with us? And more often than not, it worked well. And
Yeah.
because we just found that it was just so awkward to have like the small talk after mass, and not really get to go deeper and meet people. So we kind of started doing that pretty
Yeah.
systematically, which is funny to say out loud, but we would be like, who should we invite this week? and
Yeah.
um and then once you invite a couple of people, then it's like the doors open up because everybody really
Yeah.
knows everybody else. And
Yeah.
so we were really, really intentional about meeting almost like a different family every week. We were pretty systematic about it, and still to this day, like we'll look around and
Yeah.
be like, "They're next." Um,
Yeah.
so so we make a point to
Just
do
imagine you
it.
guys at mass, just like I see you over
Yeah,
there.
like a little
I see
bit.
that. I see that 3 year old. Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
a
get into the
little
car.
bit.
Go. Go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's awesome.
It's a little.
Yeah, that's
It's
kind of been
like.
a theme for us this year, is to try to host more, is to try to bring
Mhm,
people in. Because yeah, you're right. 'Cause it is, you're only going to get to know someone so much over like after mass, like coffee and donuts, or even if you go to an event. But
Hmm.
yeah, as soon as you make it to that intimate setting of like bringing someone in, especially when you're hosting them, it could be uncomfortable. But for the most part, I feel like it gets comfortable pretty quick. It can be uncomfortable
Yeah.
to actually make the decision, but then it actually gets comfortable pretty quick when the people get over and yeah.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So we have been doing that, and I feel like it's yeah, the Lord has blessed us with a really solid group of people, and it does feel like it's still growing, like the people that we're around. But I would say there's a core group, and you're right. Like Mark does travel. He's in the Marine Corps, so he travels at least once a month, if not more than that, for like his Marine Corps duty, and then his normal job in New York. And sometimes I travel too, but he's really the one that's doing the majority of the travel. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I can only say that like while he's gone, it's just been such a an immense blessing to have the group of people that we do have because I'll bring our boys to mass and you know there was a week a few weeks ago. I guess this was back in March. I was doing a little had a thing set up after mass, and I was trying to run this table and I realized, oh, I can't go get the boys from the ECDC across the way. You know, I need somebody to help me. So I sent one of the other dads. It's like, hey, can you go get my boys? Sure, sure, no problem. So
Mm-hmm.
goes to get them. They're all having donuts with another family, and then before I know it, our friend Joe is like, I guess my middle one decided he had to go to the bathroom. He is not potty trained, so like that was not a real thing.
That's funny.
And Joe's like, I was helping him, and I was just like, thank God for this like corral of people to help me
Mm-hmm.
manage my children. Um,
Yeah.
but it's just felt like honestly like family at church. So I think we make the effort because it's like it's so worth the effort. Not, you know, obviously far beyond just like logistics and having support, but it
Yeah.
just feels really welcoming now when we go to church and it's like we know so many people in the aisles around us and in the pews around us. So
Yeah.
it's been good. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, and that's I have a similar as well as kind of growth in the community, but in a different way.
Hmm.
Me and Lindsay both. Well, we felt like we'd go to mass, we'd come out afterwards, maybe see a couple of her OSU friends, Tara Lauderdale when she was first focus
Hmm.
missionary, or Sally who was in town at the time. But we didn't. Aside from just saying hi to them, and they're like, "Okay, I'm off," and then they would leave, and then we would just kind of okay, and we'd sneak out and leave as well. We didn't really like find any time to like go and actually make those relationships. And it wasn't actually until me and Lindsay both in the same year, someone did a pulpit talk. I think it was Phil Visconti for the guys, but about the Axe retreat. And I was like, I don't know about it, but as soon as he was like, raise your hand if you've been on the Axe retreat, and then he said men or women, in the whole congregation, like just like
Mm.
I felt like over half of them raised their hand, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. They kind of talked about it a little bit, and so for me, it took a retreat. Like it took going on and like an unplugged, like phones away, like spend a whole weekend and extended weekend. It was like Thursday night through Sunday with a whole group of guys that then we got to know really closely. Is what it took for me, as well as some of the young adults like Alec and Jen Fuchik, who
Mm.
invited me in. Alec invited me over for like cigars and coffee, like Tuesday mornings at 8 a.m. I was like, cigars at 8 a.m.
Heyo.
Okay. He goes, it's great. They do it in Europe. It's something. I was like, whatever you say, man. I'll try it out. But it wasn't until someone started inviting me, and so that's what I was gonna actually ask for. Like, what you kind of already did was those tips for someone who maybe feels that their parish of like, man, I don't feel super connected. Like, go for mass, which is the most important part. But
Mm.
then I leave, and I'm not. Maybe I'm not at the church again until next Sunday. So like, if you have any more tips, but yeah, I feel like that number one tip is to build that community. It's like to live with these people.
Yeah.
I think my spiritual director asked me one time, "What does it mean to have a relationship with Jesus for you?" And I was like, "Oh gosh, like, I don't know if I've ever actually thought about that." And so he kind of explained it as like, if you're gonna have a relationship with Lindsay, you're gonna spend a whole bunch of time with her, and
Mm.
the less time you spend with her, the more you're gonna butt heads, the more you're gonna rub each other the wrong way. But the more time you spend together, you're just gonna bond, you're gonna grow, and so that's the same thing with Jesus. You spend all this time together, and I've really found that through community. Are there any other tips you would recommend to somebody?
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I don't know. I think you have to, I mean, for us, I feel like one of our charisms, if you will, of our marriage is hospitality. So it
Yeah.
feels really natural. And it's something we did in New York a lot, was host people. And then when we moved here and pandemic and we were kind of like in between, we didn't really have a house that was our own. Um, it felt like a real sacrifice, like a real, we've like really mourned not having the ability to host. So I think
Yeah.
being aware if you have that hospitality, whether it's like you as just a single person or as a family, if you guys have that as a charism, and maybe it's one of you more than the other, but like figuring out, what your role is as a family is an important thing to do to kind of discern, and then act on that. And then I would say also like
Yeah.
accepting invitations, which I
Yeah.
think can be uncomfortable also. But we were also
Yeah.
fortunate, like, to be invited to many things. And even if we didn't really, not that we didn't want to go, we always wanted to go. But I think for, Mark and I, because he travels a lot, because we're pretty active, we can be like, okay, do we have the energy to do this thing that we committed to? And we constantly are just having to push each other and like nudge each other to, yes, you'll enjoy this. This will be worth it. Like, you never know what's going to come of these situations. You never know who you're gonna meet and who you're gonna affect or who's gonna impact your life. Like, being open to
Yeah.
that. Um, so that means like receiving invitations and then just following through, which I think is probably the hardest part, is just like sticking to those commitments. Um,
Yeah.
Sometimes, like, just because family life is just exhausting sometimes. But
Yeah.
um,
Oh yeah.
yeah, so
Especially
I
with
think those
what
are the
baby are
main
you guys
tips.
on?
We have three. Yeah, yeah,
3. Okay.
yeah,
So yeah, and I like what you said earlier too about sacrifice as well, because that kind of goes in right with what you were saying about accepting that invitation. It can be really tough because a lot of people will like be too busy,
yeah.
or it's a little bit, I don't know, make any kind of excuse. It's too far of a drive, or like, well, we have
Hmm.
this tomorrow. I got to get up early for work. But making that sacrifice to actually build that community, so you do
Hmm.
have that group to run together, I think it's so big. I know it's been big for us too. Whenever things just seem like they're not going our way in this season, we know we've got a solid group of people that if we texted and say, hey, like, if anyone's available, we just need someone to watch the kids for a couple hours, so me and Lindsay can just get some quality time together. I guarantee I could find someone to watch those kids
Hmm.
tonight, like that.
Yeah.
That would sacrifice that time. Like, oh well, we were gonna do a movie night with the family, so yeah, yeah, the kids can definitely come over for that too.
Hmm.
And so yeah, it's been great to have that community, and it's been great to get to know you and Mark as well, because I
Yeah.
know Mark always kind of, I was like, I don't know. Like, I've never talked to Mark before. He's kind of intimidating looking. And someone's like, he's in the Marines. And I was like, yeah, well, no, that makes sense. He's in the Marines. And then you talk to him, he's just so friendly
He's
and like
so,
so
yeah.
like intentional and gentle and all this stuff. I'm just like, that's not what I expected at all.
Yeah, he's
That's
an odd
that's
one. Yeah. He's an odd
uh,
guy. I
I
like
was
him though.
gonna clip that right there. If I was better technical, like with technology, I'd clip there right there. Like have the thing I just said about Mark and then end it with you saying, yeah, he's an odd guy, and then that would just be funny. And hey, Mark, just check out the first 10 seconds.
Yeah, yeah.
No, yeah, but no, he's great. That's awesome. And I feel like every time I see it's Patch, right? Or Patch. What do you guys?
The little
What's
one?
his?
Yeah.
Is that his point? Yeah. Is
Uh,
it
so
Patch?
so William Patrick is his name, but we call him Patch. Yeah.
William Patch.
Uh-huh.
Okay, gotcha. I was
Yeah.
like, I hope I'm calling him something, Patches or something like that. But every
Yeah.
time I see him, that kid's just like just the most joyful kid ever. He's
He's so
so
goofy.
fun.
Yeah.
That's cool. Awesome. Well, so now getting into a little bit more about like you, and obviously we talked about the art in the background. So, how long have you been into art? I'm assuming with like a talent like that, like it's probably something you've been doing as long as you can remember. But is that
Yeah.
something like, yeah? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, people ask me that sometimes and I'm like, forever, as long as I can remember. Like, yeah, art, creativity, it's just like how I felt like the most myself forever. And
Mhm.
something I'm just like naturally good at and drawn towards. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Oh,
So I do some painting. I don't know how much you can see, not that much, but I do some painting on the
oh,
side. It's like definitely a side hustle. Lots of
mhm.
flowers usually.
Yeah.
And then I do some illustration as well. So I have like I did a book this year, my first
Oh, yeah,
full
yeah, yeah.
children's book. So like, yeah, trying to build build this up, and I do some
Yeah.
workshops as well. I'm trying to like discern a little bit of a teaching charism. I'm not sure. It's like we did the charism assessment, and it was not like my top five, but I get asked about it a lot. So I'm kind of trying to
Mhm.
test that out and see if
Yeah.
there's something there. But for now, it's just
Yeah.
something that brings
Yeah.
me a lot of joy and helps me connect with other people.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
like exactly how I feel literally about like doing this, like doing the podcast. And people are like, what like why do you have a podcast? And I was like, honestly, it's because I have so much fun doing it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be talking to people anyway. I might as well do this. And actually, just today, I mean, it's cool too. I love like getting emails back from people. Like today, I got an email back from Tom McIntosh, who's the head soccer coach at TU, and he's like this really devout Catholic guy. And the
Hmm.
soccer team's really good, and so it's like cool to like him and be like, I would love to do it. And so it just like gives me so much joy. But that is awesome. And I wonder if first of all I want to get Jill Simons on here sometime to
Oh
talk
yeah,
about
for
charisms.
sure. Hmm.
I would love for her to do like a charisms like coaching session, and that be the episode. Be like, okay, Jill, I did my assessment. Here's my results.
Hmm.
Like, what do you think, or whatever, and
Yeah.
just have her like just do her
Yeah.
thing because it's so
Hmm.
like I can just listen to her talk about it
Yeah.
forever. So
Yeah.
do you know if because I know like on mine and yours might be similar. I've got like two of them. My top two are like really high, like 24, 25, whatever, and then it drops to like 21. But then I've got like
Hmm.
five or six of them that are like all at 19. And so
Same.
are
Yeah.
yours kind of similar
Hmm.
too? Okay,
Yeah.
because I was
Yeah.
curious
I
about
had.
that and how. Mhm.
Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I was just curious at how like maybe it is something like you said like teaching might not be in your top five. But as far as like your score on that compared to your top one may not actually be that far apart. And so maybe it actually is one of your charisms that God wants you to use and finding a way to use that.
Yeah, actually, and Lindsay and I meet in our group on Saturdays, and she actually said something that was really helpful this past week. Because we are trying to be really intentional about like testing the charisms that we have and putting them to use. And um,
Yeah.
I was talking about teaching, how I just want to explore this a little bit more. And she pointed out how um, like one charism could be sort of like the avenue for another stronger one. So like maybe
Mhm.
teaching isn't
Yeah.
your main charism, but it when you use it, it gives you the opportunity to impart wisdom, right? Like wisdom was one of my highest ones, or faith was one of my highest ones. So
Mhm.
potentially, like that could be like a conduit or an outlet for one of your stronger charisms to come through, which I thought was a really
Yeah.
helpful way to think about it because I get kind of stuck. I think like if it's like not good enough or like it's kind of all or nothing with me sometimes. So it's like, well, I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
feel like I'm a natural teacher, but I do get asked about it a lot. And I do think that people retain the information, um, but maybe I was just like missing the whole point. Like maybe the teaching is just
Hmm.
one way to express some of the other charisms that like need to be shared. So
Yeah. Yeah.
we'll see.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I was pulling up mine to see if I saw anything like that. First of all, I completely forgot hospitality is really high on mine. Um, but I think some, and I always get some of them confused because some of them I know is like I'll think of it one way, and Lindsay's usually more uh, adverse that's the word, but more like knowledgeable on this stuff. And she's like, "Well, that's not actually what it means. It means more this." I'm like, "Oh, well, I don't even know." But yeah, it's interesting to see how like something like music like I guess for me, like that was one I thought would be super high for me. I mean, that was what my background is. I was a music performance major, two-time like national trumpet competition like winner and stuff, and so I was like, yeah, this would be great. But it just because it's something I enjoy doing or I do enjoy doing doesn't necessarily mean it's something that God has like given to me to use. I mean, He wants me to use it, but there may be something higher, something like a higher calling or something possibly that He's asking me to do. And which is funny because I go back and forth of like, what is it? I don't know. I'm not 100% sure. But my number one like is discernment, and so I'm like,
Hmm.
that's got to be wrong. So, but yeah, no, it's no, it's been cool to like go through these, and I want to do it again one day because I think maybe after I did. Were you at the workshop or did like the
Hmm.
workshop? And then we did it. I don't think we did it, and then the workshop. I can't remember, but I feel like maybe I wasn't 100% understanding it at the time. But yeah, it's been really interesting. That is a good way to put it. I've never heard Lindsay say that. So there are times she
Yeah.
opens up in those groups, and I'm like, I've never heard you say that. So
She's a smart
maybe she
lady.
doubts herself. She doubts herself sometimes, and I'm just like, you're a lot smarter than you think. So
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
that's awesome. So what are you thinking of like ways you could like teach with your art, but also do it kind of like as a ministry, or what do you kind of think, or just using it as a way to? Because I know I talked to the focus missionaries about like, what would be cool is if we brought Tara in and she did like a learn to paint. She brought a picture, kind of like a Pinot's palette
Yeah.
type thing. We would bring alcohol for college students, but yeah, but doing something like that, is that kind of like your kind of process, your idea, or is it something else?
I don't have a really big vision for the teaching yet. I just know that I get asked about it quite often. Like, do you teach lessons? Do you have a workshop coming up? I get asked about it, so I just feel like there's a desire for people to learn and have a community that's creative. So, when I'm asked about it, I just think about, well, yeah, I could step into that. But I think because it's not necessarily my something I'm like really naturally inclined to. It like the vision for it isn't quite there, but I do just because I get asked about it, I feel like there's something there that the Lord wants me to like explore or just be open to. So
Yeah.
yeah, but I've taught a variety of just like watercolor basics, like
Okay.
lettering. We can go step by step, or we can um, just learn the basics and have more of a free for all. So I don't know. We'll
Uh,
see. I have a couple of opportunities in the coming months to test out
yeah.
teaching. So we'll see how it goes and if the students like really learn because I think that's the test for teaching is do your students remember things that you've told them?
Yeah.
Um, so
Hmm.
we'll see where that goes.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I'm gonna continue to ask those focus missionaries because I really think that the students would love doing that, especially
Hmm.
maybe something during finals week or something where it's like,
Oh
hey,
yeah.
we know you're stressed. Like,
Hmm.
take an hour, like, come here, like, unplug and stop thinking about it. It's getting your brain off of it, and then going back to your studies. It'll all be
Yeah.
worth out. It'll be
That
a
would
lot easier.
be
So
that would be a perfect time for, I mean, I do feel like, I mean, I could talk about creativity for like a whole hour, and just like
yeah,
beauty and how the Lord like works in that and uses beauty to draw in and reconnect. But I do feel like I think the biggest thing right now for me, I mean, I work full time. I've got these three boys, my husband, all the things.
yeah,
So like the art is very much a side hustle, but it's like the thing that really grounds me and like reconnects me to the Lord and just like gives me the mental space to for my brain to like make all the connections that it needs to for like my day job and for um for life. It's just like I think there's so much value to making space and time for it doesn't have to be painting or anything like that, but something creative, something that's outside the realm of like what you do on a normal basis to just let your brain simmer and do the things that it needs to do. So yeah, I could talk about that forever.
yeah, yeah. That's awesome. No, I feel that a lot with like again with this, because it is something that is I enjoy doing, I love doing, but at the same time, I always try to keep in my prayer of like, don't let this ever become about me. Don't let this ever
Yeah.
become about like how many. I mean, we're trying to hit certain subscriber marks. We're trying to hit
Yeah.
certain things because it could benefit the parish, but trying to not let it be about me and let it. I think of Father Mike Schmidt all the time about how he's just like probably the most famous Catholic person aside from like the Pope. But even that, maybe arguably he is because of social media. But he himself is super grounded, and when you see
Mm-hmm.
him at like Seek, and we like heard the story about him like being late to a talk because he wanted to park the sea of all the students just to go see his students, just make sure
Mm.
it's like, hey, how's it been going? How are the talks going? Stuff like that. I thought that was super cool. But also being open to the fact that this thing may never grow, but it may be something that like God wants me to do because it may be that avenue just to enjoy it, like enjoy the talks, enjoy the conversations, and just
Mm-hmm.
enjoy people and their stories, and let this be a time where you can just unplug and not think about the stresses of finances or bills or the future and what with buying a house or whatever it is. Maybe that's all this ends up being, and being really thankful that I have the opportunity to do that. And so I kind of get that way too with other things, and it's sometimes hard to actually take that time to be like, okay, I'm gonna get off my phone, I'm gonna turn the TV off, whatever. I'm just gonna like zone out. I know for Lindsay it's
Mm.
reading,
Yeah.
or going on long walks, but like
Yeah.
giving ourselves that time. It kind of goes back to where it kind of comes full circle back to the beginning of just like making that sacrifice, but also making an uncomfortable decision on like I know I'm too busy, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna take this. I'm gonna take this time because this will be more beneficial than
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I
We've got to prioritize the things that like one God is calling us to. So like if you felt the call to start this
Mhm.
podcast when you don't have expectations for it and don't know where it's going, it's like you answered, and like that's the important part, like that obedience to that. I feel that all the time in my art business. Like I also have a YouTube channel with
Yeah,
like 30, I think there are maybe 30 subscribers or something. It's like very small, and I had no expectations for the channel other than
yeah,
like earlier this year I just felt a nudge. I was like, I think God wants me to film this stuff. And
yeah. I
sorry about that.
love them, and that's what I was just like. Golly, the lighting, the camera, like it just looks so great. Did you edit them all
I,
yourself too? 'Cause I know
yeah,
like
yeah,
if
I
you have
edit
one
them.
neck,
Yeah, I edit them, but they are I'm behind. I'm really behind because the editing takes so long for me just
yeah,
like to fit it in. So like I'm at least
yeah,
2 months behind right now. I'm trying to do just a monthly studio vlog for no reason other than I felt
yeah,
a call, and
yeah,
I think that Jesus wants me to make a video about it, but I don't know why,
yeah,
or but sometimes we just don't know why. Sometimes we just have to,
yeah.
most of the time I think we just have to trust that he knows what he's doing. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and if he laid it all out for us of like, this is what I want you to do, this is why, this is going to be the effects, this is how it's all going to turn out, then it's like, okay, now it takes absolutely zero faith to make this decision to do it.
Yeah, right.
But I think he leaves us in that dark a little bit on purpose of like I want you to do this. It's like, why? Just trust me. Just do it.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
and yeah,
yeah.
and I talked to Father Elkin about it actually before I started this channel. Because I was talking to Lindsay, I'd be talking about it, and then I'd be like, and if it ever reached a certain amount and started monetizing, it would just support the parish and all this stuff. And she's like, yeah, you're thinking with the wrong intentions again.
Mhm.
Like, right.
Mhm.
Okay, so we decided I'm not gonna start this until the intentions feel right. And
Mm.
then I talked to Father Elkin about it. He's actually the one that convinced me to do it because he said in seminary they asked the seminarians, "Why do you want to be a priest?" And when someone answered like, "I want to help people," the guy head of the seminary, whatever he's called, he would say, "That's a dumb reason. You can help people as a layperson." And they'd be like, "Well, I want to serve at mass. That's stupid. You could do that as a liturgical assistant." And he said they're harsh with them, but basically they're
Mm.
showing them like that. It's like it's not that there's reason why you want to be a priest. It's like no, this is my calling. This is my vocation. It's that like God has called me to be a priest, and he said so. Same with thing with your podcast. If you feel like God's calling you to do it, or feel like God's calling you to do this with your art, you'll do it, and then you'll be in this constant state of perfecting your intentions because you will have days where you're like,
Mm.
oh my gosh, we just hit 500 subscribers. We just hit our goal. Like, sweet. Now let's go for 1,000. Oh my gosh, I can start monetizing. Let's start calling people and do sponsorships and whatever. And then all of a sudden, like, my intentions are gone again. And it's going to be
Yeah.
this constant kind of rebirth.
never
like,
start.
I'm
Hmm.
starting this thing next. I think I filmed the first episode the very next week after we had that
That's
topic.
awesome.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so and you're episode 9, I think 9. 1, 2, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, episode 9. So
Look at
month
you. You're
3,
flying through them.
something
That's
like that.
awesome.
So yeah, yeah, we just hit 135, 136 subscribers, and it's kind of snowballing now.
Nice.
So for all you guys watching, we do an episode every Thursday. So it's posted on Thursday. We're recording a little earlier. We're posting on Thursday mornings at 8 a.m., 8 a.m., 9 a.m. So, and then we'll do every now and then some other stuff too. And we're launching a Lexio Divina series on Monday, starting this coming
Yeah,
Monday,
cool.
where you guys can just take some time, 5 to 10 minutes, to pray through the scriptures. And I always remind people I am not a priest, I'm not a theologian, but I'm someone that enjoys praying with Lexio. I have a whole story about it I'll share with everybody. Monday on the first episode with Tara, had an awful experience with Tara Lauderdale, and it was awful in the best way possible. But I'll leave it at that, and we'll share on Monday. But awesome.
Nice.
Well, any other tips for moms or maybe watching that are like struggling to just keep their faith, like just struggling, like it's like 3 kids. I have 2, and the thought of another one right now, like I'm open to life, God, I promise. But the thought of a third one right now just like makes me so scared. But so I just imagine like there's so many moms out there that are maybe just struggling. Maybe they're single moms, or maybe they're moms of a traveling husband, or maybe their husband's there all the
Hmm.
time, but they just like are struggling. Do you have any like advice for them to kind of wrap this up before the Saint draft?
Um, yeah, I'm praying for a little wisdom to that I say the right thing for somebody out there watching. I don't know. It's hard. I think we've got to keep praying for like fortitude, for courage, for encouragement, and finding um, not even seeking for those things to fill it, but just trusting that the Lord's going to provide the people who you need to either support you with logistics or just be that encouragement. I know that that's honestly one of the most helpful things is is the people who speak life into our family. When like I'll call out Emily Schrader, which encouragement is one of her charisms, and she uses it so well and so generously. And going to a Monday night group or just saying, "Hey, I can't make it tonight. Mark's out of town. I can't do this," and just receiving the words of affirmation. You're doing a great job, or um, that you're just not alone in it. I think that
Mm-hmm.
parenting can be so isolating, whether your partner is with you, that
Yeah.
your spouse is with you or not. Like, even your own experience of parenting is just so different and distinct than your spouse's experience of parenthood, and motherhood and fatherhood are so different. And um I just think like the most important thing is to remember that you're not alone in it. And like, of course, you've got community and you can build that community if you're very intentional about it, but also like the Lord is with you in the walk, and he called you into whatever your vocation is, and he didn't call you and then like leave you alone. He's called you and he's walking with you in it, and he's revealing himself to me through the hard times, right? He's revealing how generous and how good he is through my poverty and my struggles, right? If I am impatient with my children, he's like, I'm patient. I'm ever patient. He's the opposite of all our shortcomings. He fills them all. So
Yeah.
I think that's like the most important thing, is just to remember that God is in whatever walk of life with you, and with your spouse too. Like, if your spouse is traveling, that's a whole different sacrifice. I mean, it's like, yeah, two sides of a coin. Um, Mark
Yeah.
sacrifices in a really unique way when he's not here. Like, it's different, but equally challenging. So um, yeah, it's just beautiful because the Lord is with you and with your spouse also, and with your kids. Like, he's
Yeah.
everywhere. So it's hard to remember, but it's
Yeah.
so good
Mhm.
to remember that,
Yeah.
yeah, he's everywhere with us.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, and that's what I was gonna you kind of tackled it as well. With my advice is always that it does take a village. I
Hmm.
was mentioning before this, I did the Harrison Bucker like reaction video to his commencement speech, and one of the things he talked about was community, and how it really does take a village to do this thing, and uh, feeling lonely and isolated is not uncommon. It's not. It's actually probably something that's more common than you think, and to just continue to get uncomfortable by talking to someone after mass, but inviting them to a more intimate setting of if you're a guy, get over it and invite another guy to coffee. I know it feels weird the first time, but Branson Trader, I'll call him out, has taught me
Hmm.
like that kind of that whole ropes, and it's been awesome. I've gotten to know so many people over that who then turn into being great supporters of our family, or whether it's helping with the kids or helping with just me and Lindsay spiritually or whatever it is. So that's
Yeah.
awesome. Well, before we get into the Saint draft, like I want to thank you for coming on and talking about it. I know I'm kind of with you on this topic. It's like a really kind of general topic, but kind of, but it's one that I feel like we could probably keep going. This is one of those ones where it's like we could like do like episode 2 or whatever. So well, like we get back around, August comes around. Who knows? I'll be going back through the guest list again and be like, hey, you want to come back on do this? Maybe we'll be catching up with you in like the end of the year or something, and like you'll be able to share with us now. It's like, oh hey, this is what I'm doing with my art now. Like this is what I kept listening, and now I feel like God's calling me to do X. And
Yeah,
cool.
that'd be
So,
cool.
but I'll if you send me over the links to your YouTube page, or if you have a website or social media, whatever,
Sure.
you send over those links. I'll include them in the description below.
Sure.
But it's
Thanks.
time for the Saint
It's
draft, and I have a
time.
running joke that I don't have an editor, but if I did, as soon as I said that it's time for the Saint draft, it would cut to a thing that would like do
Yeah.
something crazy and
Yeah.
have like Saint Philip Neri dribbling a basketball or something. But the
Yeah.
running joke is that once I can afford it, Daniel McKay, you'll be hired over here. And I keep mentioning it. I've mentioned it almost every episode. It's like one day I'll hire Daniel McKay and he'll do all my editing, and but I never tell him that I'm doing it. So one day it's like, hey, I saw that joke, whatever you heard. I heard it in the episode. It's like, well, you haven't been listening to the podcast because I say it in every
Hmm.
single one. But okay, so a refresher on the Saint draft
Okay.
for you, or for anyone listening that's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. The Saint draft is just like an NBA draft. So we're gonna draft our starting 5 plus a 6 man. 6 man's typically a blessed. Um, Before we start the draft, too, there's always this running joke as well of like the guest is always like, "What's the rules?" And I'm just like, "There are no rules. Like we can make them up as we go." Like someone said, me and Branson, we watched the episode where it's like, "We'll take Mary and Jesus off the table." But then
Hmm.
another Audrey Stubblefield was like, "Well, how about we put Mary back on the table, but it has to be a specific apparition." And then I told
Ooh.
Bishop Condola, "You can't do a blessed. A blessed will be the 6 man, but they got to be a saint." And he goes, "Okay."
Mm.
And I go, "All right, Bishop, who would be your first pick?" And he's like, "Blessed Santa Rother." I'm like, "Oh, I won't correct. I'm not gonna correct. I'm not gonna correct you." So,
Yeah.
so yeah. So we'll draft in this is that if these 5 saints were alive today, they would save the world. Um, there's always no wrong answers, but you can comment below which team you like, or if you don't like either team, you comment below which ones you would draft. So guest goes first, so you can pick a saint. And once you pick that person, you pick Mother Teresa. She's off the table. I can't have her on my team. You can give a tiny little reason if you want, like why you picked that person.
Okay. So I feel a little ill-equipped to do this, but I did some research last night on
I'm
some
always ill-equipped
people.
to do that.
So I feel pretty good about my lineup, but if you steal any of them, then I'm gonna be
You
Googling
have
while
consequences.
we're talking.
Yeah.
Okay, but my first one, and they all have kind of a theme on my team. We have a theme,
Okay.
but I will do my first one as Saint Faustina,
Okay.
and she has a devotion to divine mercy. She had all these visions, and she had these revelations from the Lord. I just feel like the main theme for my team over here is that they're very in tune with the Lord's voice. So I think
Okay.
we need more of that in the world today. So
Yeah.
that's my first pick.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. So I always have to think because I do this every week. So I'm like, I can't
Hmm.
just pick the same people every week, or I can't. Maybe I'll switch up my starting 5 and not pick the same person each week. But I always have a hard time not going with this one ever since Branson took him number one. But it's the one that Jesus said was the most righteous man, and that's St. John the Baptist.
Oh,
He
strong
would be my
choice.
first. So
Strong.
yeah, so he would
Hmm.
be my guy that would run ahead to tell everyone that Jesus is coming back.
Yeah, good choice. He's tough. See,
Yeah.
I think I didn't quite get like all the facets of like a good like if you're thinking of a team, you need like the tough guy, you need the fix it guy. You like I didn't
Yeah.
really get all that, but he'd be a good one.
But hey, but also if you were like really strong in one category, if you're weak in certain categories, but your theme is that they're in tune with God's voice, it's like, are they actually weak in those categories, or actually are they probably really strong in those categories? So
Yeah,
who knows?
yeah, okay. So I do have like okay, so I have some that are very in tune and then I have a couple of doers. So this
Okay.
guy is a doer. So I
Okay.
think I'd pick Saint Ignatius. And yeah,
Loyola.
I mean Loyola, yes. Hmm. Um, he was a doer. I mean, he's yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Ignatian
Yeah.
spirituality, the Jesuits. I mean, he's got an order. We've got some
Uh,
structure to follow. Yeah, he'd be my second
oh
choice.
yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
Dang. Yeah, that is a good one too, and that's tough because typically one of my last choices, but now it's gonna be second, just in case, is someone who he discipled, and that's Saint Francis Xavier.
Okay,
So
yeah.
I feel like there's
Hmm.
a ton of people that would just need to be baptized nowadays, especially you got Christians in one movement where they're like, don't baptize them as infants, wait till they can make the choice. And it's like, oh, that's risky, don't do that. And so he would be able to get out there and convince people you should baptize infants, but also I don't know if it's super popular anymore to like be atheist. I feel like it's more popular to be like, at least in our area, it's more popular to be like Protestant. But yeah, but I think he'd be great for being the evangelizer. That's a word.
Yeah, cool.
Oh yeah, me too.
Okay,
And this is where
my
Jamie
third.
and would have round three.
More about I, I think the more you talk about it, like the more likely it's going to happen, right?
Yeah,
you're putting it out into the
yeah,
YouTube world. Somebody else is going to be like, "I'll edit
yeah,
it for you," you know.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, my third pick is who my second son is named after. So Jack, he's
Okay,
named after John Henry Newman, and in fact, his whole name
okay.
is John Henry Newman Wright. I don't. That's just.
Oh,
I
nice.
thought I thought he
Yeah.
was just going to be John Henry, but in the
Uh-huh.
hospital, Mark did the paperwork and he put the Newman in there, so he's got the whole
Oh, that's
name.
awesome. John Henry
Um,
Newman, right? That's awesome.
yeah. So I love this saint. I felt very drawn to
Yeah,
him while I was pregnant with Jack, and
yeah,
he has a lot of writings on the university. He's a great thinker.
yeah.
Um, he's written a lot of like poetry and songs and stuff like that. And he has this one um, passage that I always think about, and he just like speaks to trust in the Lord, and he says like he knows what he's about. Like a lot of what we were
Mm-hmm.
talking about today was like the Lord
Yeah,
is in control and he knows what he's doing. So just put one foot in front of the other and trust him. So
yeah.
I think we need more
That's
trust and
awesome.
more faith, and
Yeah,
he would be a good leader in that. I think
yeah. Surprisingly, that's the first time anyone's ever picked him. So that was good
he's a
for
good
me.
one. Hmm.
Fun fact: you guys might have to make a trip down here to St. Philip Neri one day, because if you guys don't know, Newman Center would be a college ministry or a
Hmm.
university parish, but we're still in Newman Center. Upstairs, someone donated a long time ago, I believe, but there's six books in a glass case, like you can't touch them. They're from John Henry Newman's collection,
No
so like books from his
kidding.
collection. Yeah.
Wow.
So I don't. I'd have to look at them again to remember if it's like a Bible and a catechism stuff like that, or if they're. I would doubt they were like journals, because I would feel like
Hmm.
those would be like somewhere else, maybe where he was. But yeah, but we have a whole collection. I literally was given a tour one day, and someone was like, "What's this?" And I was like, "Oh, I didn't know. I've never actually really looked at that too." And then a little plaque up there says, "From the
Wow.
collection of John Henry Newman." And I was like, "Okay, that's awesome."
Yeah. I
So
would like to see those.
yeah,
That's
it's
awesome.
a good pick. Yeah. All right. So number three for me, I always go faith warrior at some point. Just someone that just has just the faith of a I don't know where I was going with that. I don't know Faith of a Saint, but Faith of a Saint. Um, but it's Saint Therese of Lisieux. I sometimes go
Hmm.
Saint Catherine of Siena because
Hmm.
she was great. Lindsay
Sure.
made a good point. Saint Catherine of Siena would be great because she literally called out the Pope and said you need to go back to Rome. But
Hmm.
I don't know. Something about Saint Therese of Lisieux and obviously her being Little Flower and her saying like when she would after I think she said while she was alive like when I become like I don't know if she said when I become a saint, but like I'll leave roses behind so you guys know whatever. And she did, and like one of her miracles, like roses would appear where they never were before, and that's where
Hmm.
we got Adeline's middle name, which is Adeline Rose.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, yeah. So Saint
Cool. Yeah,
Therese.
she's a good one. She's a good one.
Uh,
Okay, so my fourth pick is someone I don't know a lot about, and I did Wikipedia her last night, and now I've forgotten a
mm,
lot of it. But I know I know she was a mystic, and I feel like that
uh-huh.
is going to be would be important to be like somebody who has some like
Yeah.
some stuff going on, some powers or some like it's just like
Mhm.
a little out there. So
Yeah.
Saint Hildegard. Ever heard of Saint
Yeah.
Hildegard?
Okay. I've heard the name, but I also don't know anything about
Uh-huh.
her. Yeah.
So she was like in medieval times,
Okay.
and I think she wrote some music and stuff. Also, she's like in touch in related to music. So anyway,
Mhm.
if you're out there
Yeah.
watching, you should research her. I think she'd be
Yeah.
a good teammate. Yeah.
Yeah. Or if you're the expert, comment below why you think she would be
Yeah.
a good teammate.
For real.
Um, yeah, someone who just knows her like a confirmation saint or something. But cool. Okay, my fourth pick. I'm torn between a few. Um, but I kind of was thinking like that in today's age, I feel like too many people are messing around with Ouija boards and like tarot
Mm.
cards, or just flat out worshiping Satan, which is terrible. So I feel like we would need like an exorcist on the team, and if I remember right, if I'm pretty sure Lindsay knows more about them. And I always tell people just because I do the Saint draft, I'm known that the show is known for this. Doesn't mean I'm an expert by any means, but it's Saint Benedict. I believe he
Oh,
was an exorcist,
I didn't know that.
and yeah, Benedict, my son, will one
Yeah.
day be an exorcist. No, I hope he doesn't. I hope he. I want him to be a priest, but not. If God calls him to be an exorcist, that's one thing. But
Whew.
oh my gosh, that's the most terrifying thing ever. I've actually since become. I used to love horror movies, but since becoming
Mm-mm.
Catholic, I have a really hard
Mm-mm.
time watching exorcism movies. I just like no,
Mm-mm.
I didn't know this was all real. I didn't know
It's
it was
real.
real.
It's too
Uh,
real.
yeah,
Mm-mm.
so
I can't, yeah.
I don't
In the
watch
same
them.
way. In the same way, I can't watch that stuff because ugh. um,
Yeah,
yeah, it really freaks me out.
makes
Um,
sense. Pick
okay.
five, last pick, and
Pick
then we'll do a
five.
blessed to finish it.
Okay, pick five. I'm gonna pick JP too, and I'm surprised you haven't picked him yet.
Mhm.
But
He's
yeah,
typically my number one.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. He's the best. He's the best.
Yeah,
Love him.
he's
Yeah.
just great. Yeah, that's all you need to
Hmm.
know. I have this
Yeah.
picture, or not picture. Oh no, I've seen a picture of him where he's like hiking, but he's just like
Yeah.
in I
Hmm.
call him his civilian clothes, and he's just like smoking a cigar and has his
Yeah.
staff and stuff. And I'm just like, that's so cool. So me and Lindsay went
Yeah.
hiking at where they are, the Wichita Mountains, I believe, like way out in West Oklahoma. Um, but yeah, but I took a cigar out there. It's so fun. We just walked around, and I was like, smoked a cigar. Felt like I was getting closer to JP two.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I feel like
He's
I would
great.
need a pope, but maybe I could pick someone who could like take over that. Well, Pope, I don't know. Pope Francis. I don't know much about Pope Francis. I was actually talking to someone, a non-Catholic, about Pope Francis yesterday, and the non-Catholic was talking about how much they loved him, and I don't know enough about him to have like opinion either way. But um, but if he was the Pope, I could pick a saint. So then I would probably go. Man, no, I'd have to just go stick with my normal number five, which no one normally goes with them, so I can save him for number five, which is the patron saint of this podcast, is Saint Philip Neri, who
Mm.
was just great.
Hmm.
And he had this little wave of evangelization down packed. And he gave up a family business and just went over one by one, interviewing, talking to people and saying, "Are you ready to serve Jesus?" And when they say yes, he would take them right then and there to the church to pray, and then
Wow.
take them straight to where they need to go, a hospital to help, or to a church to help out, or to an older person that needed help, and would just immediately plug them in. And so I think he'd be great for that. he would be the Emily Schrader, the Branson Schrader
Yeah.
of the community of the world. Be that person that everyone just loved. So yeah.
Cool.
Okay. Last one, and then we'll wrap it up. Blessed to wrap it up.
Okay. Okay. Blessed.
This was
Okay.
awesome.
So I'm
There
gonna
have
pick.
only been like 3 picks.
Okay, I'm gonna pick Blessed Pier Giorgio Frassati, who I think is getting
Okay.
canonized
Yeah.
or something.
Next
Like
year.
he's,
Yep.
yeah.
He is.
So he's still a blessed for now. Um,
Yeah.
but I love his story. I love how like unassuming his story is. Like people didn't know all he had done until he was gone. And yeah, just
Yeah.
that humility of service, I think is awesome.
Yeah.
In his adventurous
That is super
spirit, I
cool.
think we need that.
Yeah. Yeah, he's someone I don't know a whole lot about, but I've heard nothing but good things, and I think it's Father John Fincher that really likes him. But yeah, he'll be canonized next year.
Okay.
And also I don't know if he's next year, but my blessed that I would pick is Carlos Acutis, however you
Okay.
say his last name.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And actually, I just got a message. Well, not just now, but like before the show, I had an Instagram message from one of our TU students who's over in Rome, I believe, or wherever they're at. But said a group of us TU students just went to his burial site today. And I was like, oh,
Oh
that's
wow.
super cool. But they also just announced him that he is officially
Mm-hmm.
open to be canonized as well. So I think he's like right there behind Giorgio Frassati. So I don't know if they'll be at the same time or if they'll be like if
Cool.
Carlos Acutis will be a little bit behind him. But he's got such a cool story, and I know we're kind of going to set a record here as well for time going. But just real quick before I wrap it up, is that he had this awesome story about um, after he passed, his mom said that saints would visit her in her dreams,
Oh
and she
wow.
didn't know what to think of it. So she would talk to her spiritual director, or priest, or whatever it was, and explain them. But there are multiple, but the two um, was Saint Francis of Assisi appeared and told her that your son is one of the highest of the ranking saints in heaven, and he will
Wow.
be canonized soon. And when he is canonized, a whole generation of saints will become canonized behind him. And I was
Wow.
like, whoa, like that's super cool. And it kind of gave me chills. Actually, just gave me chills just now, but like
Yeah.
it kind of gave me chills because with that being the overall goal, someone like Blessed Carlos Acutis doing that, and St. Francis of Assisi appearing to her and telling her that this would happen, it gives you like so much hope and so much excitement to just dive deeper into your faith and dive
Mm.
deeper into it all and really shoot for that being a saint. And then the second one was Carlos himself appearing to his mom and said, "Mom, like,
Oh
do not fear,
wow.
do not worry." But then but then he said with such excitement in his voice that I'll be canonized a saint soon, and I'm going to be leading multiple people to Christ or something like that, or multiple people to
Wow.
heaven. And I was like, that is so cool. That's the coolest story. So, but yeah,
Wow.
two people that can only be blessed for so long, or they're
Mm-hmm.
are only going to be blessed for so long, and then they will eventually be in that starting five, which is awesome. So you guys comment below which one was better, but obviously there's no wrong answer. So next week we have who do we? Oh, Dustin Sanford. So we're going to be talking a little bit about the high school ministry going into the college ministry. Uh, like 70% of people fall away from their faith in college. And I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
talk with Dustin to see if he knows why that is. I expect him to have all the answers, and we're going to fix the world's problem. Just kidding. But Tara, thank you for being on. I'm sure we'll stay in touch again. Send me those links, and I'll put them in the description below. And
Sounds good.
everybody else, don't forget to hit subscribe. There you get log in on your YouTube channel and hit subscribe. You'll be number 137. So there we go. And everybody else, you guys have a blessed week, and we will see you soon.